Starting with Jim, I'd like to have a follow-on to what York said. Last year, the SSE was meeting at Yale, and I had a new book that was just coming out, and I asked Bob John if they would give me a blurb. Good stuff, read the book and that, which he agreed to do. But prophetically, one of his last comments to me was, we're on the home stretch. I've asked to do a tribute to Jimmy Channon, who's better known probably in the IRVA circle, a friend of mine I met nearly 40 years ago, who was a brilliant Imagineer. He was a phenomenal artist, and many of the symbols that he used originally, these are some examples of it, can be found in the military today as symbols that are used in the various diagrams, and this is running away. Are we there? Okay. Anyway, these are examples of some of Jimmy's artwork. What was great is you could work with him and say, I have an idea and I have trouble with straight lines and stick people and that, and he would go, oh, and here's what you do, and by the way, here's what you forgot. There was something, I met him with, we spent a lot of time with Task Force Delta, which is not Delta Force, but we were known as the High Command for a reason that you might want to explore. But it was, what is the difference that makes a difference? And this is some of Jimmy's symbology that was in there. He's also well known for something called the 1st Earth Battalion. Now, first of all, this was not a real Army unit, but a notional unit. And what he would do is put pictures out there and as a way to allow people to think about things. It was originally done literally in black and white. The pictures weren't quite complete, but it was so people would take their imagination and fill in the blanks. And some of his things were, let's say, a force of hearts or the National Guard, the Natural Guard. Remember, we're talking early 1980 time frame and 70. One of my favorite stories has to do with General Thurman. At the time of this incident, he was a 3-star, he was Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel, meaning he had responsibility for all personnel actions, and he was going to do a presentation. He liked to do one-upsmanship with other 3-star generals, if you can imagine competition at that level. So he was doing cradle to grave, literally, all the way from recruitment through retirement and all of the personnel actions that could be accounted for there. And a number of us worked with him, and he turned to me and he said, John, give me some of those big words that you use. And we were talking like psychokinesis and remote viewing, but precognition, thanatological preparation, etc. He says, I want to just put some of those up. So we were working late, and remember, this is before PowerPoint and all this. We're using Monstergram, and Jimmy has to make all of these charts. So I gave him a piece of paper and said, okay, just write these words down. And you're working throughout the night. And so the next morning I come in and I see the chart and I don't recognize the words. I said, Jimmy, what happened? He says, well, I lost your chart, so I had to make them up. And things like remote viewing had become soft eyes and all of this. And I'm going, my God, in 2 hours, our boss has got to go, and I have got to come up with definitions for these words that I've never seen before, which it was exciting. More exciting was that years later, these charts continued on with the definitions that I literally made up on the fly because Jim had lost the paper that night. Some of you will know about men who stare at goats. It is built totally on a false premise. No goats ever died from being stared at, and it's based on a book. In the book, we are all identified, by name. But one of the key issues was that Jeff Bridges actually was playing Jim 1-for-1. Did not have the ponytail, but still, it was quite an honor for him and that. what we thought is the positive side of goats. Jim always liked to use humor. And he says, with humor, you can create confusion and actually inject a lot of ideas that otherwise would be seen as scary. So you can inject controversial concepts with the use of humor. He considered himself a proto-mythologist who is at the house, and his war cry was, dare to think the unthinkable. This is Jim. He was invited speaker at the IRVA meeting, and this was taken in 2010, actually here in Las Vegas. A lot of people don't realize that Jim really did have a family. Here's a picture of his daughter Brooke and son Parker with their spouses. He lived on the Big Island in Hawaii. And Jim's work kind of continues today. You can find it on the internet, and it's based out there. And I would end with Ke Akia Pu Ahui Hua. Thank you.